There's a cycle in history. 3 world powers fell because of it in the last 500 years. Now it's 2025, and America is walking the same road, step by step, decision by decision, like we're replaying the script that led to disaster before. In 1590, Spain was the richest empire on earth. Half the world's gold and silver belonged to them. 80 years later, they went broke and never recovered. In 1914, Britain ruled the largest empire ever built. 40 years later, it was gone. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed not from invasion, but from within. 3 times 3 empires, same sequence. And here's the frightening part. America has already passed 5 of the 7 stages. This isn't theory. It's history repeating. The story of how empires die, and why every one of them believes they're special right until the end. Collapse never begins with invasion. It starts quietly with economic exhaustion. The empire grows beyond what it can sustain. Bases in 150 countries. Wars on multiple fronts. Promises it can't keep. Debts it can't pay. At first, nothing looks wrong. Money still works. Armies still win. But under the surface, cracks appear. Resources get misallocated. Production declines. The best people leave. Then acceleration begins. Allies look elsewhere. Trade partners diversify. And suddenly the empire's greatest advantages become its weakest points. Currency floods back home. Military reach becomes unsustainable. Power promises turn into empty talk. Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union each made the same fatal assumptions. Each believed power was permanent. Each ignored the math until collapse was irreversible. After Columbus reached the Americas, Spain conquered the Aztecs and Incas, seizing the richest mines on earth. By 1600, Spanish ships hauled home over 400 tons of silver per year. Their currency, the Spanish real, was the world's reserve money. Everyone wanted Spanish silver. That's where the pattern begins. Control of the world's money and the illusion of invincibility. Stage 1. Military overextension. Spain fought on 4 continents against the Ottomans, France, England, and rebels in the Netherlands. Half the empire's income went to war. Still not enough. Stage 2. Currency debasement. When taxes failed, Spain debased its currency, mixing copper into silver. By 1600, silver coins contained mostly copper. Inflation exploded. Trust vanished. Stage 3. Endless debt. Spain borrowed constantly from bankers in Italy and Germany. Between 1557 and 1596, the crown went bankrupt 4 times. Each time it restructured, each time it borrowed again. Stage 4. Collapse of production. With all the world's gold and silver, Spain stopped producing. Why farm, build, or innovate when you can import? Manufacturing and agriculture died. Nobles saw labor as beneath them. Wealth flowed straight back out to France, the Netherlands, and Italy. When silver mines declined, the entire system cracked. Stage 5. Social decay. Crime soared, cities filled with beggars, and Spain's best minds fled north to rising nations that still created wealth. By 1650, Spain lost Portugal and the Netherlands. By 1700, it was an empire only on paper, rich in memory, poor in reality. The first modern superpower had burned itself out. At its height, Britain controlled 1/4 of Earth's land and population. The pound sterling was the world's reserve currency. London was the global financial capital. But by 1900, the pattern had already begun. Stage 1. Military overreach. Britain maintained far-flung garrisons in India, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. When World War I came, they chose to fight and bankrupted themselves doing it. By 1918, victory came at a price: massive debt to the United States. Stage 2. Currency strain. The pound was tied to gold, but war drained Britain's reserves. In 1925, they restored the gold standard at the old rate, overvaluing the currency. Exports fell, unemployment rose. By 1931, they gave up the gold standard entirely. The pound dropped 25% overnight. The world's reserve currency had just admitted weakness. Stage 3. debt spiral, and empire. Lost World War II finished what World War I began. By 1945, Britain owed more than its GDP. The empire could no longer defend itself. In 1947, they gave up India, the jewel of the crown. Over the next 2 decades, Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean followed. Stage 4. Currency decline from 1940 to 1980. The pound lost nearly half its value against the dollar. The empire's military power shrank, replaced by symbolism, a UN seat, nuclear weapons, and nostalgia. The world's banker had become a museum of what once was. After 1945, the USSR emerged as the other superpower, nuclear-armed. Ideologically confident, controlling half of Europe. But behind the propaganda, the same sequence unfolded. Stage 1. Military overextension. The Soviets spent 15–20% of GDP on defense, triple America's share. They had to match every Western move. Afghanistan, Cuba, Vietnam, Africa. They financed allies everywhere, draining resources. Stage 2. Economic stagnation. By the 1970s, growth stalled. Oil revenue propped them up. But factories produced junk and farms failed. A nation with endless farmland imported grain because central planning crushed innovation. Stage 3. Currency and resource collapse. The IZ. Ruble was worthless outside its borders. Trade relied on gold and oil. When oil prices fell in the 1980s, so did Soviet solvency. Stage 4. Loss of empire. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Poland, Hungary, East Germany gone in a year. The USSR couldn't afford control. Stage 5. Total breakdown by 1991. The state dissolved entirely, no war. Just financial implosion. A nuclear superpower vanished in 900 days. The pattern had repeated again, overextension. Debasement, debt, loss of empire, collapse. Now the same sequence is unfolding in America. Slowly at first, then faster. Stage 1. Military overreach. The U.S. maintains over 750 bases in 80 countries. Troops in 150. We defend Europe through NATO, East Asia through alliances, fight in the Middle East. An $850 billion annual budget, more than the next 10 nations combined, yet still stretched thin. If China moves on Taiwan, Russia pushes NATO, and Iran blocks the Gulf simultaneously, we can't respond everywhere. Overextension. Check. Stage 2. Currency debasement. Since Nixon ended the gold standard in 1971, the dollar has been pure fiat. Since 2000, the money supply has quadrupled. Since 2020, trillions more were printed. The dollar has lost 98% of its value since 1971. The tools differ, the outcome doesn't. Debasement. Check. Stage 3. Debt spiral. U.S. Debt is 36,120% of GDP. Interest payments approach $1 trillion annually. More than defense spending. Deficits are permanent. We borrow to pay interest on previous borrowing. Debt spiral. Check. Stage 4. Hollowed production. America designs and consumes but no longer manufactures. We import $800 billion more than we export each year. Even medicine and military parts rely on foreign supply chains, like Spain importing everything with borrowed silver. We depend on dollars others no longer need. Loss of production. Check. Stage 5. Social decay. Trust in institutions is collapsing. Crime and addiction rise. Homelessness spreads. Fertility drops. Political division paralyzes everything. The brightest minds disengage or leave. Social decay. Check. We are deep in the pattern. 5 of 7 stages complete. What comes next? Stage 6. Loss of reserve currency. When allies diversify and trade shifts to other currencies, the dollar's dominance ends. The BRICS alliance, gold accumulation, yuan oil. Trade's early cracks are forming. Once the dollar is no longer essential, it will come rushing home, triggering inflation, debt crisis, and collapse. Stage 7. Sudden implosion. Collapse is not slow, it's fast and brutal. The Soviet Union vanished in 900 days. Britain lost its empire in 20 years, Spain in a century. Once the reserve currency fails and debt overwhelms, the transition from superpower to ghost happens almost overnight. The illusion of exception, every empire believed it was different. Spain had silver. Britain had global trade. The USSR had ideology. America has technology and the dollar. But the pattern doesn't care. You cannot spend endlessly. You cannot maintain empire without production. You cannot debase currency and expect stability. Once stages 1 through 5 are complete, 6 and 7 follow. The sequence is mathematical. The timing is the only unknown. Maybe we have 10 years. Maybe 5. Maybe less. But history cold, consistent history says collapse is coming. When it hits, it won't announce itself. A currency crisis will trigger a debt crisis, which triggers a political crisis. The reserve currency will become regional. The superpower will become a cautionary tale. Spain, Britain, the Soviet Union all believed they were exceptional. All thought the rules didn't apply. They were wrong. And unless America changes course, the pattern says we're next. If this opened your eyes to where we stand in history's sequence, subscribe. Because when stage 6 and 7 arrive, understanding why may be the only power left.